In every corner of the world today are humans. 7 billion of us. How did we come to so dominate our planet? It's one of science's greatest mysteries. Amazing new evidence suggests it began in Africa, when a tiny group of people left the continent on an incredible journey. Using bones, stones, and genes, we'll uncover the trails their descendants left across the world and find out how their journeys transformed our species into the people we are today. We begin by going in search of the first humans. We discover how we survived in our dangerous homeland of prehistoric Africa and search for the route we took out of Africa on the way to colonizing the whole world. Where do we all come from? Where does our human journey begin? It seems that it's here, in the Great Rift Valley of East Africa, that our species has its homeland. In all likelihood, we have been living here for longer than anywhere else on Earth. The best evidence for this was discovered in 1967. Richard Leakey, son of legendary fossil hunters Mary and Lewis, was following in his parents' footsteps, searching for humankind's origins.
In the first place, I think the perspective that we have from our prehistoric past is relevant. But perhaps more importantly, it's also possible to look into our past and see why it was that we succeeded where other animals failed.
Working with a team of scientists, Leakey set off to explore a remote area on the far side of the Omo River in southern Ethiopia. But just reaching the location was an enormous challenge. And after months of planning, they made it to the banks of the Great River, only to be faced with disaster. A huge crocodile attacked their boat. The crew were lucky to escape with their lives. And even once they'd managed to make the crossing, their luck didn't improve. The sight was looking fruitless. Until one of the group spotted some fragments of bone sticking out of the sand. When the pieces were painstakingly put together, they revealed this: a human skull. And in 2005, new dating techniques revealed its age, around 195,000 years old. This is the oldest member of our species, Homo sapiens, ever found. It's good evidence that this region of East Africa was our first homeland. But who are we? And how did we get here? The very first human creatures evolved much earlier than the people of the Omo Valley, around 4 million years ago. They were much more ape-like than us. A series of different species of human then evolved. They had gradually increased brain size and were better adapted to life in the African savanna. We are the most recent in the line, Homo sapiens, or modern humans. The evidence is very fragmented, but it seems likely our most recent ancestor is an ancient human creature like this. In 1921, archaeologists found this skull in a mine pit in Kabwe in Zambia. It's a prime example of Homo heidelbergensis. So what's the difference between him and us? By comparing him to hair-toe man, a well-preserved Homo sapiens skull, we can see what changed through time.
This is a fossil form of modern Homo sapien, a hair-toe skull. And this one is Kabwe. When you see these two, you can see it clearly, they're really different. As you can see, Kabwe has lots of primitive features when it's compared to a modern Homo sapien. Kabwe doesn't have a forehead, which is typical of primitive forms. Modern Homo sapiens, that is us, has a forehead. And when you see the face, Kabwe's face juts out more. It has heavy brow ridge, which you don't see in the modern Homo sapien.
When reconstructed, Homo heidelbergensis looks similar to us, apart from his long, low head and heavy brow. But these ancient humans completely died out, while our species flourished and spread across the planet. So what was so special about us? When we think about what makes us stand out from other animals today, we might say art, music, language, religion, the ability to plan, or to love, perhaps. But has this always been the case? Did the very first humans share these characteristics with us? Not all scientists think so. But recently, an astonishing discovery was made that gives us a clue what our ancestors were really like. The site of the find is 5,000 kilometers from where the Omo skull was discovered, in South Africa. Today, Pinnacle Point is a playground for the rich. But what lies below the manicured golf course has seriously changed our understanding of the behavior of our early ancestors. And it's all down to this cave. Because people were here 165,000 years ago. People apparently just like us. It's one of the earliest places we're known to have lived.
Well, this cave, I know from my experience excavating here, the setting is obviously beautiful. You can't have a better place to work. But climate-wise, it's very comfortable. It can be stormy and wet outside, and in here you're warm and dry. It's generally protected from the wind. It's a good place to live.
But it's what these people left behind that suggests they already had what we regard as typically human qualities.
These types of tools are very typical of what we find in this cave. And this is a quartzite blade, and this is a quartzite point. And alongside these, in the oldest deposits, we also find these much smaller bladelets. They're obviously very small blades, and because of their small size, it's unlikely that these would have been handheld tools for cutting. It's very likely that these represent some of the earliest stone tools that were set into a handle.
Tools this complex are typical of our species. They can be used for cutting wood or plants, butchering meat, and hunting.
These barbs would prevent the tip from pulling out. The wounds that weapons like these can inflict creates a blood trail that can be tracked. I think that would be a pretty effective tool.
And from what the archaeologists are finding in this cave, it seems our ancestors put their tools to good use.
We really find a whole range of food remains. If we're talking about land animals, we're talking about anything from buffalo to dune mole rat to tortoise. So people were, at this time, very accomplished hunters.
But despite their skill, this wasn't an idyllic lifestyle. Our ancestors weren't the only hunters living in these caves.
It would not have been a simple trip to the grocery store to get their food. Very near to this site, there's a carnivore den that we've excavated that has some extremely large lion teeth in it. So by consequence, the hyenas that gathered that lion must have been pretty large size too.
So, with dangerous predators as neighbors, how did we survive? A clue is in the floor of the cave at Pinnacle Point. It's littered with ancient mussel shells. This is the earliest evidence of humans eating seafood and may have given our species a huge advantage. Because by gathering food from the sea, our ancestors didn't have to rely on outcompeting the lions and hyenas. And this also reveals something else about us, something that would really set us apart.
Most of the shellfish that they're collecting, you really have to be able to pay attention to tides, and you have to plan your visits down to the ocean. It's not usually the case where you can just walk down and collect something off the rocks. You have to pay very careful attention to both spring and neap tides in order not to be swept away.
This ability to plan ahead gave our species an enormous head start. But there's another discovery at Pinnacle Point that makes the people who lived here seem even more like us. Ochre, a natural pigment often used for creating art. This piece has been deliberately marked or engraved. It may have been used to draw on the cave walls or for body painting. This suggests the people living here had high levels of communication and perhaps even language.
In the time period we're looking at, you see technology that's advanced enough and requires enough planning that the technology would need to be taught. And it's probably not something that could just be done visually. It would need to be done in words and expressed. So I think it's that transmission of knowledge from one generation to the next. I think we see evidence of that it really couldn't have happened without speech.
Language allowed humans to organize their society in a way no other creature was capable of. We can never know what they said to each other, but we might be able to get just a hint of what it sounded like. 2,000 kilometers north of Pinnacle Point lies a vast land of semi-desert.